Hi folks, Roland Martin here and welcome to my YouTube channel. You know, over the years I've done little anecdotes and little stories about guys like Ray Scott and Forrest Wood and all these different people and talking about tournament competition. And a lot of people have asked me, what's the spookiest, most dangerous thing that's ever happened to me? Well, I'm going to tell you, it was the time I almost got shot. I almost got shot in a tournament. And it was really, really spooky and really, really scary. And let me tell you about it. Well, what it was 1970, and I just started my tournament career, and I just gotten out of the military just a couple years before. I'd been guiding on Santee Cooper, and I'd been really into big bass fishing. First of all, Lake Eufalla in the 60s was the hottest lake in the whole world. The biggest strings of bass ever were caught there. In 1969, I saw the biggest string of bass that was ever weighed in a tournament. Gerald Blanchard and Rip Nunnery from California teamed up and weighed in 197 pounds in one day with 30 fish. Now you have to understand what the limits were back in the 1960s and 70s. In the state of Alabama, the bass limit was 15 bass. Now the bass limit is 5 bass. In some states, the bass limit's 4 bass. So anyway, that was the stage back then, and I'd seen Gerald Blanchard and Rip Nunnery in '69 had all their 30 bass. Now you have to understand this: they caught 30 bass that one day. Every single one of them were over 6 pounds, 6 to 9 pounds. That's just incredible. And I saw that stringer. So anyway, here it is a year later. The fishing's just about as good, and I go out the first day, and it's funny because I drew this guy, Kirk Van Valkenburg. The first day of the tournament, Kirk is a real hotshot fisherman, and I just knew he could just catch about as many as I could catch. So I'd been practicing on the lake, and I'd gone way down to Drag Nasty Creek, and I'd taken my Ambassador 5000, and I'd had it loaded up with 20-pound monofilament with a big 3/8 of an ounce weight, so it would cast a great big 9-inch man's blue worm, and I'd throw it out there in that 15 and 20-foot water. Bam! I'd catch them 6 and 7 and even 8-pound bass. So I had this really good spot. But when I drew Kirk the first day of the tournament, I'm thinking to myself, boy, if I take him down there, he's going to wipe me out. Plus, he has his own boat, and he'll probably go back there. We didn't have much etiquette then. He'll probably go back the second day of the tournament and he'll go steal my spot. So I said, I'm not going to fish that really good spot unless I have to. Well, the first day, Kurt and I have stayed up the river, and we caught a limit of bass. I had 15 that weighed, I don't know, 20 pounds. Or it was you know, or so. I don't know what they weighed, but it was pretty good little stringer. I wasn't in the top 10, but I was in contention in the tournament. There were about 100 people in the tournament. Okay. The second day, I drew a guy, had no boat, had never fished Lake Eufalla a day in his life, didn't know anything about where we're going to go. I figured now it's like a whole 40-mile run all the way down to Drag Nasty Creek. I run down there first thing in the morning. There's nobody there. Boy, I'm telling you, bam, I started catching these great big bass. My partner, he didn't catch as many as I did, but think of this. Just think of what he did catch. He caught 5, and they were all just giants. And the 5 of them weighed 37 pounds. Now, you just get that. That's really a lot of fish. That's really, really heavy fish, but that's all they caught. Okay, now I caught 12 that day. I didn't catch my limit. I did catch some smaller ones, but mine weighed 52 pounds, the biggest tournament string I ever weighed in my whole life. Well, as we were finishing, what Eufalla had then was standing timber. There were logs and trees sticking up out of the water, and it would kind of give you, we didn't have GPS then. We couldn't just go in and just say, oh, well, I'm just going to go out here and look at my GPS and go find the spot. We had to look at a tree for a tree or a point, or we had to cross-triangulate, line up this tree with that point, and we had to do all this kind of stuff to find these spots. Or we put out markers. In this particular case, on Drag Nasty Creek, there was a great big log laying in the water, about this big around. We called it a deadhead, with one end sticking up like this, and the other end was kind of anchored to the bottom in about 10 or 12 feet of water. And it was right where this river channel edge kind of dropped off. And that's where these big bass were schooled up. You throw out there just in the deeper part of the water and drag it up that thing, and boy, those big 5 and 6 and 8-pound bass were biting. Anyway, like I say, I had 52 pounds, my partner had 37 pounds. As we started to leave, a yellow boat shows up. And this yellow boat is kind of watching us, and he sees us catch a fish or two. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm just one of these local guys. That's a bad deal. That's really terrible. He might steal my spot. So what I did, he kind of left. And I said, okay, give me that rope. I'm gonna drag this deadhead. So I tied a rope around the deadhead because that was kind of right there where we were fishing. And I dragged it about 200 yards away. I just dragged it. It was just kind of moving. And I dragged this whole log across the lake to another spot. But there are some trees behind us, and there's also other landmarks around. So anyway, I run all the way down there the next day. It's the third and final day of the tournament. I am now leading the tournament. I'm number one. I got the most weight of all the 100 fishermen. I can hardly wait to get there. And when I finally am zeroed in on going down to Drag Nesty Creek, and I look down, I see a little cluster of boats down there. Getting madder and madder. I said, now you have to understand, I'd been doing a lot of big bass fishing at Santee Cooper. And one of the things that I did was I couldn't stand any competition around. These big 6 and 8 pound bass that I was trying to catch at Santee, you know, there'd only just be one per cypress tree. And then once you'd catch them, it wouldn't replace itself for probably forever. So I had just a few spots that I guarded with my life. If I'd see another boat coming, I'd get all mad and leave. And so competition for the big fish was always a big problem with me. And I don't really get upset about it. Well, that particular day, I'm running down the lake and I see this cluster of boats and I'm getting close and there's the yellow boat. Son of a gun, and I line up everything. I line up my spots. They're exactly on my good spot. And I pull up right in the middle of these, there's like 5 boats. I pull up right in the middle, and all of a sudden, I yell. This is why I got in such a big trouble. I yell and cuss at these guys. I said, what in the such and such are you guys doing here? This is my tournament spot. I'm leading the tournament. I'm number one in the whole tournament, and you're on my spot. Well, you know what they said. You know what people always say when that situation occurs? They always say, you don't own the lake. This isn't your spot. This is as much my spot as it is anybody's spot. With that, I had a gaff. Now, I was a striper guide as well on Santee Cooper, and I had this big old handle, and I had this big old gaff about this big around. And I took that gaff, and I cut it off like this, and I went over to that boat that was talking to me, and I'm just a few feet away. I said, if you don't get off this spot, I'm going to rip your head off with this gaff. Well, now, wait a minute. That's really not a real smart thing to say, because in just a second, I saw him fumbling around in his tackle box. I saw him come up with a great big model 1911 Colt pistol. You have to understand, I knew a little bit about firearms. I just got out of the military, and I was a rifle range officer. I was a second lieutenant, and I ran this rifle range. And we would practice with pistols as well, and would practice with all the rifles. So for a whole couple of years, I'd shot that model 1911 thousands of times. I knew how to strip it. I knew how to take it apart. I knew everything about a model 1911 Colt pistol because I'd been in the military for all those years running rifle ranges. Okay. Now, when he put that pistol up and the barrel is now about 3 or 4 feet from my face, the first thing I did is he had the hammer cocked back. He took the safety off, and the trigger, I saw his finger kind of depressing the trigger. Now, wait a minute. A Colt 1911 military Colt 45 pistol has a trigger pull of about 4.5 to 5 pounds. That's the military specs on it. Well, you could get them adjusted even lighter, but anyway, it's 4.5 to 5 pounds. I saw him put a pound or so of pressure on the trigger. I'm now saying that he's about ready to kill me. He's about ready to shoot me. I can see this gun about ready to go off. Well, there's only one thing left to do in that situation. I smile. I say, I'm just kidding, guys. Hey, I wouldn't do anything like that. I'm going to leave. Hey, don't take any offense. Go ahead and fish here. I mean, I just completely back-crawled out of that situation because I did not want to get shot in the face with a Colt 45. Well, with my tail between my legs, I eased along. I motored away from those guys and got away about a quarter mile away, and there's a little channel, and I'm catching a couple small ones, and I'm not doing much. Well, anyway, I'm just saying, well, boy, that was my chance to win the tournament. That was a big deal. About that time, one of the boats left the little group and came idling over. He came idling over to me and he says, hey son, he says, I saw that whole big confrontation with the pistol and with you, with that gaff. He said, let me tell you. I said, yeah, that guy had a pistol. He about ready to shoot me. He said, yeah, and he should have done that. He was definitely in the wrong for pulling a pistol on you and threatening your life. Okay, that was a bad deal. But you shouldn't have taken that gaff and threatened to kill him in the first place. You're both in the wrong. And I said, yeah, I guess so. I guess that was really a stupid thing to do. He said, what you should have done, he says, I'm a reasonable guy. He says, you should have come up and said, listen, guys, hey, I'm leading this big tournament. I would really appreciate it if I could fish here. Or something like that. Something in a nice thing. He says, it probably would have worked out. You probably would have been able to fish there, and you probably would have won the tournament. I don't know about now. I almost won the tournament. I came in second place. Without a doubt, if I'd had those big fish on that other spot, I'd have clean clock and I'd have won the tournament. But I tell you what that whole scenario did, that whole big story, that whole big thing was, number one, I almost got shot. Number two, I learned an important lesson, and that is humility. You just can't go up to, I don't care, I know it makes you mad, and you got spots to fish, and you wish there was more etiquette on the lake, and there's not. But it does not pay to threaten people. It just is just the worst thing you can ever do. The best approach is somebody's fishing your favorite spot and say, hey, buddy, and, I really would appreciate it if I could kind of fish here. I've been fishing here for a couple of days, and it's one of my better places. Can I kind of fish around? Well, if you say something nice and gentle like that, about 90% of the time, people are pretty good with it. And they'll let you fish, and everybody gets along fine. That's about the best you can hope for. So I learned a valuable lesson, and I almost got shot. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'll tell you what, folks, doing this YouTube's a lot of fun. I really enjoy you people watching. I enjoy you subscribing. I'm really happy with all that's going on. So, hey, be sure to hit that likes button, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.